Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 61 today for the Austrian Grand Prix in Season 4. If you guys did miss the previous one at Monaco, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, because there were only 8 finishes in that entire race. We could have had the old point system and everyone who finished would have still had points in that race. It was an absolute roller coaster where we went from, well, looking at going for the race win to a very, very different race ending. But following that one, we still lead the Drivers' Championship ahead of Alexander Albon and Lando Norris in 3rd place there. Red Bull, unfortunately, did get a whole load of points over us, though, because Carlos Sainz DNF'd and got caught up in that huge Turn 1 pile-up, which was obviously initially caused by yours truly, but then, you know, the weirdest AI behavior I've ever seen. You would have thought some of them would have, you know, slowed down, but they all just pile-drived into Turn 1, and for whatever reason, someone pointed out in the comments, quite funny enough, that didn't cause a safety car, but, you know, stuff that was less than that did. So, yeah, very, very odd. Definitely go check it out if you want to get clued into how that even occurred. But looking ahead now to the next race weekend, upgrades coming in with the DRS upgrades and all our engine upgrades on the power side of things. So now we have a maxed out power unit on pure engine power. Of course, there's still some upgrades to come on the fuel and also on the ERS as well. But in terms of pure engine power, we have the most powerful engine on the entire grid as we top that area of the R&D chart. Had a little window shop with the aerodynamics upgrades, but I kind of want to wait until we're able to purchase the front and the rear downforce upgrade at the same time, just so it balances out the car. There have been times where I definitely have felt an imbalance, so we're just going to hold off on that. And then also, it was actually useful because I had to repurchase an ERS upgrade that did fail, and then I looked into buying some reliability upgrades. Yes, some more. We had 2 reliability upgrades that came in just before the Austrian Grand Prix weekend kicked off, and then I went about purchasing some more because we've seen our rivals face very poor reliability. You know, both Albon and Norris have had engine failures, and, you know, in the case of Norris, he's had 2 engine failures, I think, and then Albon had a DNF for a crash. So both of those drivers, they've had 2 DNFs, I believe, over the course of the season so far, and that is a big factor to why we are leading the championship right now. So I want to try and maintain that reliability and keep that consistency that crucially is keeping us ahead. But what will maybe help us in that pursuit of staying on top and controlling the championship lead that we now have is this progress that we are making, because we are now just mere pixels away on the R&D chart from being the best car on the grid for the very first time in this entire My Team 22 series. It's kind of bonkers to say, but we've not been at the top ever on paper, and now we're so close. But there's going to be continued stiff competition, obviously, into this weekend. It is the home race for Red Bull. Repsol Haas show they are a force to be reckoned with potentially at Monaco, and being the top of the aero chart for Haas, that means they have a pretty good car, not only in downforce terms, but also in terms of drag reduction, which could help them out massively here as well. So it's not going to be easy, but it's definitely going to help us getting up towards the top of the R&D chart and giving us a better chance. You know, we would have had to perform even more miracles, basically, in terms of driving and the race progress, basically, if we weren't there. But this is going to allow us to fully feel like we can take the fight, aiming for, you know, the top front rows in qualifying and aiming for consistency of, you know, minimum, I'm talking top 5s, podiums, and of course wins. We've technically already got 1 win in the sprint race of Brazil, but we're yet to still get one in the full Grand Prix. I thought I was pretty nailed on to get one at Monaco, but obviously my ERS failure had other ideas. Obviously, we're running on board here on Friday of Austria for qualifying. Overcast conditions right now in Q1. Of course, it is a sprint weekend. We just spoke about the sprint race win we had at Sao Paulo. Can we try and maybe mimic that and go for a sprint win here? Feeling pretty confident. Q1, though, have to keep your wits about you. I went for 2 consecutive laps earlier in the session because halfway through the session, as I was coming in, the rain has started to fall. So good that we got a lap time in to get up into P5 right now, and that that will get us through into Q2. And it was important to get that early lap in, because it may have felt like a bit more of an uncomfortable affair just about scraping through for the likes of, you know, Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull, Russell in the Mercedes. You know, it's so tight at Austria consistently on this game. There's only like 3-4 tenths between first place and like 14th. So, you know, one mistake in a damp condition track, that could have been quite nasty. So glad we got that lap in early, and then we get through into Q2. The sun is coming back out, so it looks like maybe the rain just came in for a fleeting shower and then has gone away, and things will get warmer and warmer as we go on through the rest of the Friday qualifying. So we've left it to the end of this session, as we only have one set of new soft tyres to use. So we're going for, again, 2 consecutive laps, because despite you going as low as you can on the fuel setup, you still have enough fuel for 2 laps. So technically you're leaving time on the table if you don't go for a second flyer, and we know we're not going to use these tyres in the race, so may as well go for it. And the tyre still has some good grip in there, so we do improve massively to go up into P2 as it stood at that point of the session. By the end of Q2 we go down to P7, but that's going to be enough to make it in. But it's some big unfortunate dropouts for Alexander Albon in the Red Bull. His teammate Tsunoda makes it through, but Albon, the other Red Bull who's in the championship fight in this early stage, knocked out. That is massive for myself and Lando Norris. But both McLarens, just like in Monaco, look frighteningly good over one lap, and I'm sure that will convert into the race. So they may have had a double DNF, you know, reliability issue disaster at Monaco, but it looks like they'll be right back here, Austria, maybe going for that 1-2 domination. But can we, or Sainz, you know, because he's in the same car as well, could he topple them? Or Tsunoda, of course, who is still in that very quick Red Bull, but clearly Albon just got caught up in whatever, you know, traffic, or just didn't get the lap time in. Also, for the first time, we've got a feature of 2 Haas cars in Q3. Sebastian Vettel in the Audi, Russell in the Mercedes with Leclerc as well. We go up into P5 with our second lap, which I thought was pretty good to split the 2 McLarens at that point in the session. By the end of it, though, Gasly comes through for pole position. Tsunoda, though, is the one in second, so he does take the challenge to McLaren, and Lando is only just ahead of me in P6. Sainz shows there was more pace in the car, so I'm on the back foot. Looks like our teammate has a bit more pace, and both Haas cars out-qualified me and Lando Norris. So that was a surprise, but showing how good they go maybe around here with that slippery car of theirs, with the rounding out the top 10 of Russell, Vettel, and then Leclerc, who got disqualified in this Q3. Don't know how. I completely missed that happening, but he got disqualified. But, you know, it won't matter too much, because we have a sprint race to come up, which will set the grid for the proper race on Sunday. But points on offer on the Saturday, so we're going to try and go out there and try and limit the damage at least, try and get ahead of at least Lando, and we could actually gain some points on Albon, who, of course, starts outside the top 10.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint.
So Sainz definitely showing the car had a bit more pace in the tank over one lap compared to what I was able to do. He's there on the second row. Also, I think in race conditions, that's when our powerful engine, the best engine on the grid now, by quite a decent margin actually, is going to come into play. I think in race conditions, in the slipstream, you're going to be able to see us hopefully powering past people, and so I'm confident, like in Sao Paulo, we can try and get this towards the sharp end of the grid for Sunday and try and bag near maximum points here on the Saturday sprint. We've got some overtaking to do, but I think I'm confident in it. But let's see how the race start goes. It's going to be a tight run into turn 1, and we've got some pretty quick Haas cars ahead of us, as well as one of our championship rivals in this early stage of Lando Norris, as we go to 5 red lights to this sprint race here in Austria. Lights out, and away we go. It's a good start for the McLaren initially. Then we're going to try and jump up with a bit of ERS. Very hard to try and pick a racing line and do much else but stick to the outside line, but that will ultimately keep us clean through turn 1. Get the pass on Lando early, and we're away now to try and have a look at the 2 Haas, but they're both trying to maybe have a go at our teammate Carlos Sainz. Drogovic round the outside, trying to get up into P3. It's a drag race now between him and Sainz through to the next right-hander, as we now just try try and close up to his teammate, Robert Schwartzman, but Sainz on the inside, Drogovic on the outside there, and Sainz gets the elbows out. A bit of contact was made, but no damage for either drivers, I don't believe, and Sainz remains in third place, Drogovic P4, Gasly remains in first place, off pole position for this sprint, Tsunoda second place, and already maybe sensing a little bit of running away with things, maybe Gasly is, but Tsunoda is hanging on within 1 second, so it might be Tsunoda versus Gasly for the top 2 spots, but I'm confident we can get up to Sainz at least and get on to that third place in this sprint. But a virtual safety car is deployed behind us for some contact, I believe, with, well, that man Piastri, I think, in the final corner. I think there was debris behind us, and so that's why we've got a virtual safety car. Let's look at a replay, because there was a bit of chaos also on the first lap in the first sector. So we see Magnussen in the Porsche Williams having a go at the Ferrari up the road, and because of the concertina effect, Verstappen just kind of, you know, has a domino effect of slamming into the back of one car, and then that domino effects into the last corner because Piastri smashes into the side of Verstappen, and he has to unfortunately retire out of this sprint. Verstappen's going to be down the order, so that will compromise both their guys' Sunday Grand Prix. But in our world, we're going to get going again as the virtual safety car ends in P6 onto lap 3 and on the back of Robert Schwartzman, one of the 2 Haas right ahead of us. But despite those cars looking pretty damn slippery in a straight line, I think we have the engine power now with that final upgrade coming in to power past, and we get a really, really good exit off turn 1 there as Schwartzman, his rear end did switch slightly off the curb, and now we're through on the left hand side, but Schwartzman dives down the inside of his own teammate. They make a bit of contact. That's a little bit sketchy, and Gunther Steiner is going to be wincing on the pit wall at that as we try to make a move. Instead, we got re-overtaken, and we almost had a bit more hard work to do ahead of us as Schwartzman continues to try and defend this position whilst also simultaneously attacking his teammate a little bit. But in the end, eventually, we will have the better racing line on the left-hand side of the circuit, in that portion of the circuit, to get up into P5 and hopefully push away with a really strong back foot to the concrete to push towards Drogovic and kind of see Schwartzman in the mirrors now struggling as Norris is right up behind him. So you can see the Haas is a good car now. It does have some speed in there, but you can kind of tell in the corners that maybe chassis-wise, they're maybe not as good because the McLaren does look very nimble. Lando Norris, goes through at turn 1 because that's a mistake from Schwartzman. So that's another factor, is of course Schwartzman and Drogovic, 2 F2 drivers in the game, maybe just not as highly skilled as some of our drivers. But saying that, Drogovic is going to do very well to defend against us. We get it a bit too hot into that right-hander, but we're going to have that second bite of the cherry of this straight. We didn't get DRS though on this straight, actually Drogovic did, but with the ERS usage, trying to switch back from left to right, Drogovic doing a stellar effort though to defend against me, just like he did in Monaco. Our former teammate from season 1, I said it then last episode, you know, he's had some really stern defenses against us, you know, obviously knows me quite well from season 1, but it's great to see him up here now. But eventually the outright pace of our car is going to shine through, and we're in clean air now to chase after the top 3, because Sainz is actually now in the DRS of Tsunoda as there's contact, big contact between Bottas and Magnussen. That's going to be a safety car then for all the debris, and that's going to bunch us right up to this top 3. So it's now game on maybe with a sprint win potentially as we try and go on the outside and force the move on the left, but Sainz remains strong. Bit of a twitch on the rear end for him and me. Contact made as my front left tyre bangs against his side pod. This is getting a little bit frosty between myself and Carlos Sainz, and now we have to defend against the Haas of Drogovic. Try and get a nose in on the inside, but Sainz again makes it very awkward. Turn 1 and turn 3 there. He just parks his car in a way that makes it very difficult to brake later to to make that pass, and behind, well, in the same fashion, I do the same to Drogovic then, as he pulls out, as unable to make a move, but through turn 1, Sainz consistently is hitting that curb and getting a bit of a rear end twitch. So now, is this finally our chance to overtake our teammate? We go to the left-hand side, Sainz giving us just about enough room to work with into the brakes, and he holds the inside line. That's going to leave the door open though on the left, and finally we get the traction down, ERS, and we're going to just power past him and get to the inside to defend the racing line up into P. Oh, Sainz has hit us! Sainz has hit us! Our rear wing's broken. We've got major rear wing damage. My engineer is saying on the heads-up display, it's a yellow, or slightly orange rear wing, and I can feel the rear end has really lost a lot of downforce there. I think Sainz has damage now, but I can just feel every time I'm turning in mid-corner, the rear end is starting to float. There's no feedback that I can feel the car being pressed down on the rear end of the car. Sainz is in. He's actually caused such a train that we're able to re-overtake Sebastian Vettel. But what on earth was Carlos Sainz doing? Our teammate has hit our rear wing, broken it. He's now down the order in the sprint race, and we're now left struggling with a lack of rear downforce and stability, but that's not going to stop us going for overtakes in a straight line. The engine power's still there. We power past Leclerc, and Schwartzman go to the inside to defend. Schwartzman turning into us, and what's happening? Schwartzman, what are you doing, man? What is going on? What is up with the AI today? They're being so unbelievably aggressive. We're down to P12. What on earth is happening? The AI, they're going mad in this sprint race. Sainz hits us. Schwartzman just does not want to concede the position and hooks our car up on the railing and holds us back and allows him and Leclerc to re-overtake us. This is the replay then, first and foremost, of that incident with our teammate Carlos Sainz. As I was alluding to, you know, I don't know what was going through his head. Obviously, this all started maybe at Baku, where he nearly put us in the wall. Tension's a bit high after that. This race already did make a bit of contact with him, but then what is that? He just accelerates in the brake zone and just bumps our rear wing. We went to the inside to defend. Here at this point, you just hold back behind us, but he then accelerates that squirt of throttle to smash into our rear end. I'm very lucky I managed to hold it opposite lock to drift it through and keep it going in a straight line. Ultimately, he's the one that's lost out more, but then, crucially, this then happened. So we get the jump on both of them initially because they were side by side at turn 1. We go to the inside to defend. Schwartzman on the middle of him and Leclerc, and then he gets hooked onto our rear left tyre. But the whole time, he's constantly turning right into us and not allowing us to unhook from each other, and that's because Leclerc is hooked onto him. So it was both Leclerc and Schwartzman's fault for turning right continuously into me effectively and not allowing me to get unhooked and actually get off them and get off that curve. So now, second last lap of this sprint, they're still going at it, Leclerc and Schwartzman gets sent off wide by Leclerc, and we repay the favour by going a bit deep ourselves, and now taking to the grass slightly to overtake Leclerc, get back to the racing line, nice and easy under braking in a straight line, because you may not be able to tell it, but trust me, the feeling driving this right now with the steering wheel, there was no force feedback whatsoever from the rear end. I could feel the car floating on the rear and it's stepping out, and a testament to that was in our car, that's nearly the best car on the grid. I couldn't catch Verstappen anymore, and actually I had Schwartzman right up my chuff in the mirrors, hounding us for P9. So what an eventful sprint race at Austria for the second season in a row. Remember, this time last season, I got disqualified in this sprint race because of a glitch with the game. This season, it's not a glitch, it's just the AI today was so erratic and aggressive. I've never seen anything like it. What got into them today? I'll never know. I'll never know. But Gasly was able to dominate that one and get the sprint win. Like I said, it looked like it was going to be Gasly and Tsunoda in the top two, but it could have been us. We could have been there, but Sainz had other ideas. A controversial blowing up moment there as he hit our rear and broke our rear wing quite severely. Drogovic gets up in P3, then Norris, one of our championship rivals, P4 ahead of us, and we get no points for the sprint race, but we do end up being able to secure at least a P9 on the grid for tomorrow's full Grand Prix, whereas Sainz will be down the order along with the likes of the two Ferrari cars, Valtteri Bottas as well. But wow, just what a weird Saturday, a frustrating Saturday, a frustrating one, and one that's left me with a bit of anger of how that's ended up there. It very much is maybe the start of a bit of a civil war in this Martini Audi team. Let's go to Sunday.
Welcome from the beautiful Styrian Mountains for another chapter in the story of the Austrian Grand Prix. It's one of the shortest laps on the calendar today then, with 7 rights and just 3 lefts, making up the 10 corners of this high-speed circuit. Turn 2 is barely a corner at all. They'll be flat out through there, a left-hand kink into the uphill braking zone of turn 3. Turns 1, 3 and 4 are all potential opportunities to overtake. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. A fantastic effort from Pierre Gasly yesterday puts him on pole position, and Yuki Tsunoda completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Drogovic, Norris, Alex Albon and Vettel, Perez, Verstappen, the owner driver and Charles Leclerc, Théo Pourchaire, Fernando Alonso, Valtteri Bottas and Ocon, Magnussen, Stroll, Carlos Sainz and George Russell, Liam Lawson, Oscar Piastri, Schwartzman and Mick Schumacher. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. And alongside me once again for coverage of today's race is none other than the great Anthony Davidson. We should talk about Williams. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
So Sunday is another day, and I'm hoping we can put everything behind us that happened on Saturday in terms of the performance. That there were glimpses in that race, in that sprint race, of how quick this car now is with the engine power, and also obviously the improved aero from the start of this season. Obviously still some work to do on the aero department compared to other teams, but it's in a pretty good place. So I think from P9, if we can get past the Renaults and my former teammate Sebastian Vettel and the other Audi Sport Works team quickly, I think we can have a good chance at, again, getting on the back of those Haas cars, then getting past them eventually, and hopefully going after Lando Norris, Gasly, Tsunoda. I want to still go for this win. I think we could do it. I think there's pace here in the car, and we just need to hope that we don't get caught up in any instance in the AI, or maybe a little bit less ago this entire race, but we'll see as we go to 5 red lights now for the full fat Grand Prix here on Sunday. The Austrian Grand Prix is underway. Lights out, and Vettel with a really slow getaway. Verstappen on this soft compound gets a stonking start into turn 1, overtakes Vettel. We're going to try and get past him as well, and a kind of copycat move from the one we made in the sprint, just holding a nice clean outside line, and now using a bit of ERS to power past Verstappen and then get it down the inside of not 1 but 2 cars. Albon locks up crucially and gives us the space to get up into P5. You can tell we want it today and we're raring to go, but up ahead even better stuff has happened because Felipe Drogovic is into the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix. He's jumped Gasly and Tsunoda. What's happened there? Drogovic leading this race from Gasly, Norris 3rd, Tsunoda 4th. That is a massive massive development in the opening lap. And this is how he did it. On the second row, Tsunoda and Gasly ahead of him. Gasly gets a slow getaway, blocks off Tsunoda, but in turn opens the door wide open for Drogovic to effectively pull off the same move I did into turn 1 both times on Vettel and Lando Norris and get up into first pretty easy, actually. It's actually Gasly just making an error of focusing too much on this man Tsunoda on the left-hand side, who's now being overtaken by Lando in this replay. And so that is how the McLarens are now 2-3, and the Red Bull is down to P4, which is the position right ahead of us. And now lap 2 back to the live action. We have a really good chance of overtaking the Red Bull car. Plenty of battery use. Tsunoda very stern with the defense to the right-hand side of the circuit. We're easy under braking because with heavy fuel, easy to lock up into that corner, and we know we have the straight line speed. I know I have that engine power in here to now try and pounce on the outside now. Try and use the momentum to pull us around the outside. Tsunoda is defiant and stays ahead, but just like in the sprint, we're getting the move done now through the next left-hander here, slightly off camber, and we get up into P4, and now we're not going to hopefully look back behind, and just all eyes on the 2 McLarens ahead of us and Felipe Drogovic. On that double DNF, of course, going to be a very important race for McLaren to try and bounce back from that, but it's an important race for us with Sainz down the order after his sprint crash with us in P16. We need to be the best possible to try and limit the damage to McLaren in the constructors and also Red Bull, because both of them are in the top 10 as well. But behind, we've got a bit of a train forming behind Theo Pourchaire, who gained a lot of positions in the sprint, P10, and he's going to bunch up everyone behind him with Alonso, Leclerc, Bottas, and there is Sainz down in P16, thinking about what he's done on the Saturday, I hope. But we're now back to our POV on lap 4, gaining on Norris. As up ahead, Gasly and Drogovic fighting for the lead. Norris defensive and locks up and takes us wide. Again, at that corner, the AI just can't seem to have any composure. Norris knocks us wide to the point where Tsunoda's re-overtaken us and overtaken both of us. Meanwhile, up ahead, look at this. This is sensational stuff. Gasly round the outside, going wheel to wheel with Drogovic. They were fighting already from the end of Sector 1. They're still going at it. Meanwhile, back to our fight. Tsunoda with no front wing because he made contact with the McLaren, I think, coming back on circuit. And he's going so slow and he's so awkward. He's holding us all up and bunching us up back to Norris and Albon there. And just don't want to take any kind of risks. We're trying to go for a too aggressive move. So we go delicately around the outside to get up into P3. And now hopefully get on to using the clean air to close up to Gasly and Drogovic if they fight enough. Speaking about fighting, plenty going on behind with Sebastian Vettel going for a double move. It's 3 wide into turn 1. I think that was Verstappen's front wing braking slightly, so I think Verstappen may need to come in for an early pit stop. He was going to come in anyway because he's on the soft compound tyre, but look at all the fighting going on. Renault versus Audi versus Red Bull, and then through all of it, Sebastian Vettel is going to keep his head cool, calm and collected, and the reigning world champion will get up into P5, I assume, round the outside. Verstappen, though, is giving it a big old fight despite the damage on his front wing with a soft tyre. Ironically, he's probably negating that damage slightly and helping him mid-corner, and maybe this is actually more so showing the weakness of the Audi Sport Works team. They may have a good engine, but I don't think their chassis and aero's quite up to scratch. Obviously developing a bit more from scratch compared to our team, so you know, still room to improve, but Vettel will eventually get up into P5. Verstappen's in, and so that'll elevate Albon and Perez up the order, but Norris then in P4 with clean air to chase after ourselves, and in turn we are chasing after these 2 men of Gasly and Drogovic so far has been doing a stellar job. The Brazilian is holding firm and trying to hold on to this race lead, but Gasly is in such a solid McLaren that he's coming back at him. DRS enabled for the Frenchman on the left-hand side, but Drogovic will keep his nose in and will dive back down the inside. He's driving in no fear today. He is, and he's going to try and keep the first place. You can see he's able to pull alongside again. The Haas goes for it, bit of contact made, and these two are having an absolute ding-dong, and they've lost so much time having this fight that we've caught up to them. So we're now in the fight for the race lead on lap 6. There's still so long to go in this race, but this is very promising, being up here in the top 3 and now in the top 2 as we get down the inside of Pierre Gasly and set our sights on our Season 1 teammate and set our sights on the lead of the Grand Prix. This is the kind of pace that we were showing in little glimpses in the sprint, and the pace I hope we'd show, and now this is the time to prove it as we're in the slipstream. DRS open for myself on Drogovic. He goes defensive, of course, to the inside. We are going to take it cautiously and switch back left to right instead, learning from that mistake of keeping on the outside from Lando, because clearly some drivers are proving that they just can't keep it composed in the brake zone, and instead the switchback works wonders for us because we're just able to get on the throttle so much quicker, and we're now into the lead and already pushing ahead by about half a second ahead of the Repsol Haas. So can we pull away, break that 1 second, and let the McLarens scrap the Haas car enough for us to breathe a little bit in this race lead? Well, initially not so much, because Drogovic does come back at us. He nips on the inside, but ultimately loses a bit of time. And behind, Gasly's made a mistake. He locked up at turn 1, and now Lando Norris is the McLaren up in P3. As we go defensive to the inside, as Drogovic tries to dive around the outside, it's not going to work, and in fact he gets squeezed out so much that now Lando is right up his chuff, and eventually, a couple of laps later, lap 11, we have broken away because these guys have been fighting ever since. Lando makes contact with Drogovic on the front left tyre. The two are going to continue squabbling. He goes from the right to the left. This is so good to watch. Drogovic trying his utmost to defend against two cars at once. Three wide into the right-hander. Bit of contact with Gasly. No damage though. And Drogovic is trying his best to hang on to the P2, but it looks like surely Lando's able to get the move done with DRS, but again, because he's on the inside, he's trying to dive down. This time, he can't keep it through, and he does move down to P3, but he just comes back at him in on lap 12 with DRS, so it really is going to be these two McLarens scrapping Drogovic, it seems, and this is just giving us acres and acres of advantage to pull away. The gap is now 3.7, nearly 4 seconds, as these guys keep on losing time to myself, being side by side this entire time. I mean, it's a great watch, because now Drogovic makes a great move to get back up into P2. Repsol Haas have officially arrived at the top portion of this F1 grid, and here's the proof in the pudding. Drogovic back up to P2, and like I said, meanwhile, lap 13, 3.6, we're just, the tyres starting to go off a little bit. We will be coming in on the next lap, but still, it's so great to have such a gap here, and it gives us a bit of breathing room, potentially, with the strategy and just general controlling of this race, as these two, for a third or, pretty much fifth time, I think, ever since we got into first place, are side by side at that corner. The Haas again has to tuck in for P3, and Lando is once more in P2, but for how long? For how long? Because that Haas just keeps on sticking with him, and with that DRS train, it's very hard to break if you don't just immediately break the 1 second, like on the get-go, as soon as you make the move, and that's exactly what we did, having defend against Drogovic on that immediate moment. So now, lap 14, we're in then. It's going to be an earlier stop compared to the McLarens and the Haas, I believe, but it's because that was kind of the strategy my engineer gave me. He suggested coming in a bit earlier onto the hards. I'm going to accept that because the medium tyres were starting to go off a little bit, because I did have a 4-second gap that kind of then went down to 3.5, 3.4, so thought better to come in sooner rather than later. But look at the bottom corner of your screen. That is Carlos Sainz, who's just gone through. He's yet to pit in this race on the mediums, and this may just get a bit awkward because we are going to catch him on these fresher hard tyres if he continues on. And lap 16, Norris, Drogovic, Gasly, they're still not come in, and I've caught up to Sainz just about. I'm hoping he would let me go. I'm hoping his side of the garage on the pit wall are telling him, don't hold me up, I'm on a different strategy. I pit earlier than him. He's still going on those worn mediums, but I suspect off the back of Saturday that may not be guaranteed, as we have a little look to the inside, but just can't find the speed to dive down the inside there. And to be honest, I'm scared about diving down the inside from that far back, because you just never know what he's going to do now after Saturday, having broken my front wing and the way he acted at Baku as well. Into turn 1, DRS available again. We try and go around the outside. He makes it very awkward in the brake zone, and then brake checks us on the exit, and we have to take avoiding action on the outside line of turn 1, and we re-engage and go again, saving a bit of ERS now for this part of the circuit. He locks up, big lock up for Sainz, and again holds us up. This is a disaster. What is he doing? Carlos Sainz is destroying our race, and this is going to invite the McLarens and Drogovic to get up into P1 as we send it through on the inside. It's a desperate dive with a lot of ERS used, but we're up into P6 and we see the back of our teammate. Also, I thought, because Sainz dives down the inside to try and re-overtake me on worn medium tyres. We're side by side through the rest of that section, the left to the right. We will eventually remain ahead because we have fresher tyres, and he is actually coming in on this lap, but that makes that even worse. The fact he's come in on that lap now, he's held us up sufficiently, and he's come in now, and he's had his last laugh, because now, entering turn 1, I can't believe it. I can't believe he's eroded a near 4-second lead I had, and now we're behind Lando Norris, just ahead of Drogovic, thankfully, but what on earth was he doing? He was not in the same race as me, and he's decided to just fight me for no reason. I really didn't foresee any sort of issues with signing Sainz as our teammate this season, but it's proving to be one that is becoming very difficult to manage within the cockpit as the team owner as well. But we're going to have to kind of push that past this and focus now on the race that's ahead of us and having to try and re-overtake Lando Norris. We learn from early in the race and give him all the room in the world there, because I'm just scared about him locking up again and taking us wide. So instead, we'll wait for the DRS, the second bite of the cherry. ERS used this entire time to dive round the outside, trying to roll the car through in second gear, get on the power early, then use a bit of battery once we find the traction. But the McLaren is still there, but we've got the inside line. It's going to be the better one for us, and Lando has to really wrestle the steering wheel to keep it going, and that's going to get us up into P1 once again. But we've had to fight for it, all because of what just happened earlier with Carlos Sainz. But Lando now is in the DRS instead, and also Drogovic. So unlike in stint 1, I now have a bit of work to do, because Norris comes back at us straight away with DRS. We're deploying all the battery and squeezing him to the right, but here comes Drogovic on the outside. We're going to duck out of that, because did you see how close Norris was to crashing with Drogovic? And if I kept my foot in there, I would have been exactly where they were nearly about to make contact there. So some good patience driving from me. I know I have the pace. That's the thing. I'm confident that I can win this race. So just taking it easy, knowing I can go back after them and re-overtake both of them, hopefully.
There appears to be an issue. We're currently investigating.
Oh, for goodness sake, we just brought in some reliability upgrades for this race weekend, and we're still getting issues. Is it going to be another ERS deployment issue? We've had, earlier in the season where the ERS wouldn't deploy. Then at Monaco, it was worse. It was just stuck on deployment, and that was worse around a street circuit where the rear end is so crucial. Around here, if the ERS gets stuck open, we could maybe try and drive around it until it fixes itself. We're going to have to see it. Oh, no! No! Are you actually being serious right now? Not again! Not again! At Monaco, just as we were going to go for the win, we had an ERS issue that brought its own problems. But now here at Austria, as soon as we talk about going for the win, we've got the pace, the confidence, the whole engine goes. And that's a complete DNF, mechanical failure. The engine's up in smokes. And for the first time this season, we're out with a DNF because of the power unit. In a race where we literally just brought new reliability upgrades to negate that issue, and it's still not helped. Goodness sake.
Another race and another win for McLaren. Tell me, Ant, how do they manage to achieve this win?
But they certainly stood out as a driver with tons of confidence on the track. I think their ability to keep their cool, even during some of the more hectic parts of the race, meant they were able to capitalise on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
As the winners make their way up to the podium, one can only imagine the celebrations that will take place at McLaren tonight. Congratulations to everyone on the team, securing the win and proving that they're a force to be reckoned with out on the track.
And in the end, McLaren domination is what we got. I don't know what happened to Drogovic. He's not on the podium. What happened to him? I gotta feel bad for him. He was in the lead of the race. But no, Pierre Gasly of all people, it's not even Lando Norris. Gasly's come through to win the whole thing ahead of Lando. And then with the Red Bull in third place, both of my title rivals early on in the season getting on the podium, getting good points. And that's going to be a heavy blow to my championship lead. We're not going to be in the lead anymore. Sorry, it was Tsunoda actually in third place, not Albon. But Albon still got a load of good points over me now in this episode. Sainz even did. After all of that he did in this race weekend, he outscores me this race weekend, which is definitely not good karma, I don't believe. But Drogovic, he's not even in this top half. What happened to it? He also had an engine failure. I can't believe that luck. Oh my, that's so gutting for both of us. He must have had a subsequent engine failure later after my DNF. That is so gutting. Us two Season 1 teammates handshaking in the pen as the race still goes on probably. Because both of us could have won that race. And both of us were let down by the engine in the back of our car. Oh man, that is unbelievable. That is mad. Our time will come. The pace our car had today, we can't not win a race in the next couple. And Drogovic also showed some absolute class out there. But we've lost the championship lead. We've got some work to do now to come back at Lando and at Alexander Albon and also Red Bull and McLaren. And we've got some thinking to do of that man on the right-hand side of the screen. Because what happened this weekend was just not on. It was not acceptable in my eyes. And I'm going to have to do some thinking. But guys, if you have enjoyed that episode, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.